Hey everybody, Jim Perry from Reach here. I'm out at Bear Cave Park to work on practicing some Taekwondo forms, very specifically here to work on my most recent form, Kong Sangun. So I've been learning this form for about 9 months, and one of the things that I love about the martial arts and practicing forms specifically is that I am responsible for making things as close to perfect as I can. The more that I practice, the better I will get at it, and the more exact and precise that series of moves will look. So over the last 9 months, there have been several points in this form that I've struggled with, and most recently, the very last, about second or second and a half of it. And I've been working on this for weeks. So last night in class, I was struggling again, and on Mr. Gommel's advice, I broke it down and worked on that last second and a half or 2 seconds. I really took about the last 3 or 4 seconds and worked it over and over and over again, and ended up coming up with a breakthrough last night, kind of like we have talked about in the other breakthroughs video. The thing is, in order for this to happen, there are 3 things that have to occur: patience, persistence, and perseverance. Patience is that capacity to tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. Absolutely, that has to happen. Otherwise, you are lost. You won't be able to move forward at all. Persistence is continuing that course that you were on despite any difficulty or opposition. Sometimes difficulties get in the way, and sometimes opposition, meaning that someone else doesn't agree with what we're doing. And then perseverance is taking that persistence one step further and continuing with something despite that delay in achieving success. So all 3 things work together in order to find growth and personal movement forward in any one area of life. So this was a difficult thing to do. Not necessarily easy. It looks much easier than what it is, but my body and mind were not allowing me to do the form exactly correctly. And even though it seems like a very short amount of time, there was quite a bit of work and focus into getting that to where I wanted it to be. Sometimes when we practice patience, perseverance, and persistence, we see a lot of growth. Sometimes that growth is huge. Sometimes that growth is minimal. Sometimes that growth is very, very small or doesn't look like it's existing or happening at all. And sometimes it might even appear like we're moving backwards and getting worse at something. But they are all still worthwhile characteristics to work on and to practice: patience, persistence, and perseverance. So this form is just one example, and again, of why I love the martial arts, because it allows me to practice all 3 of those traits. Long time ago, I had a teacher that I worked next to, and this teacher was a nice person, but wasn't someone that I would normally hang out or get along with, not someone that I saw eye to eye with. And I'm assuming this person felt the same about me. But I practiced over my first school year working with them patience, persistence, and perseverance, and eventually got to the point where we could actually visit and get along just fine. Not that we didn't like each other, just that we didn't always see eye to eye on stuff, so we chose to go our separate ways most of the time. But through patience, persistence, and perseverance, we were able to find common ground. So sometimes if you're taking on something like a social cause, this doesn't always have to be something physical. If you take on a social cause, patience absolutely has to happen, because change doesn't happen quickly. Persistence has to happen because there's likely going to be opposition from others. And then perseverance absolutely has to happen because there is probably going to be a delay in finding any kind of success. So this can apply to learning anything brand new. So if I'm talking to someone about learning how to multiply fractions, they're going to need to be patient with themselves. They're going to need to be forgiving of themselves. They're going to need to understand that mistakes are going to happen. They're going to have to use persistence because there is going to be difficulty. There's not going to be opposition, because we're all going to want them to achieve that, but there will be difficulties in most cases. And then that perseverance allows them to move past that delay in achieving success. So my challenge for you today: in what areas of your life are you needing to use patience, persistence and perseverance? And what kind of growth has that allowed you to experience physically, academically, however, socially, emotionally? How has the use of patience, persistence, and perseverance allowed you to grow as a person? And how are you encouraging that in other people so they can grow as people? This is a responsibility of ours as human beings as well, to encourage others. How are you being patient? How are you allowing that other person to be patient with themselves and forgive themselves for mistakes? How are you allowing them to use persistence, and how are you encouraging that and being an example of that? And how are you letting them persevere? How are you being a good example of perseverance so that person in your life can experience growth themselves? Something to consider today. I wish you well. Talk to you soon.